Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. And Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. The other side. Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava. Kunja Bihari. No. Jai Mitbad Paramahansa Rudikacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Rudikacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Isopanisad Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Yeah, that would help. Thank you. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Magudhakasya Swidhanam Ishavasamidam Sarvam Yatkincha Jagatyam Jagat Tena Tyaktena Bhunjitha Magudhakasya Swidhanam Ishavasamidam Sarvam Yatkincha Jagatyam Jagat Tena Tyaktena Bhunjitha Magudhakasya Swidhanam Isavasamidam sarvam Jatyam jagat Tena Tyaktena Bhunjitha Magudhakasya Swidhanam Isavasamidam sarvam Yatkincha Jagatyam Jagat Tena Tyaktena Bhunjitha Magudhakasya Swidhanam. Can you do it? Can you do it? Yeah, one time. Ishabasamidam sarvam Yatkincha Jagatyam Jagat Tena Tyaktena Bhunjitha Magudhakasya Swidhanam. Ishabasamidam sarvam Yatkincha Jagatyam Jagat Tena Tyaktena Bhunjitha Magrantakasyasvidhanam, word by word meanings. Isha, by the Lord. Avasyam, controlled. Idam, this. Sarvam, all. Yat kincha, whatever. Jagatyam, within the universe. Jagat, all that is animate and or inanimate. Animate or inanimate. Tena, by him. Chaktena, set apart quota. Bunjitaha, you should accept. Ma, do not. Buddha, endeavor to gain. Kasyatsvit, of anyone else. Dhanam, the wealth. Translation. Everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. Purport. Vedic knowledge is infallible because it comes down through the perfect disciplic succession of spiritual masters, beginning with the Lord himself. Since he spoke the first word of Vedic knowledge, the source of this knowledge is transcendental. The words spoken by the Lord are called apaurushaya, which indicates that they are not delivered by any mundane person. A living being who lives in the mundane world has 4 defects. 1, he is certain to commit mistakes. 2, he is subject to illusion. 3, he has a propensity to cheat others. And 4, his senses are imperfect. No one with these 4 imperfections can deliver perfect knowledge. The Vedas are not produced by such an imperfect creature. Vedic knowledge was originally imparted by the Lord into the heart of Brahma, the first created living being, and Brahma in his turn disseminated this knowledge to his sons and disciples, who have handed it down through history. Since the Lord is Purnam, all perfect, there is no possibility of his being subjected to the laws of material nature, which he controls. However, both the living entities and inanimate objects are controlled by the laws of nature and ultimately by the Lord's potency. This Isopanisad is part of the Yajurveda, and consequently it contains information concerning the proprietorship of all things existing within the universe. The Lord's proprietorship over everything within the universe is confirmed in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, 7:4-5, where para and apara prakriti are discussed. The elements of nature, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego, all belong to the Lord's inferior material energy, apara prakriti, whereas the living being, the organic energy, is his superior energy, para prakriti. Both of these prakritis, or energies, are emanations from the Lord, and ultimately he is the controller of everything that exists. There is nothing in the universe that does not belong to either the para or the apara prakriti. Therefore everything is the property of the Supreme Being. Because the Supreme Being, the Absolute Personality of Godhead, is the complete person, he has complete and perfect intelligence to adjust everything by means of his different potencies. The Supreme Being is often compared to a fire, and everything organic and inorganic is compared to the heat and light of that fire. Just as fire distributes energy in the form of heat and light, the Lord displays his energy in different ways. He thus remains the ultimate controller, sustainer, and dictator of everything. He is the possessor of all potencies, the knower of everything, and the benefactor of everyone. He is full of inconceivable opulence, power, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandjana Shalakya Chakshu Unmilatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 16th chapter, again I referred to the last 4 verses of the chapter. In that chapter, Krishna first enumerates 28, qualities, saintly qualities, beginning with fearlessness, abhayam sattva sangshuddhir, purification of one's existence, etc. And after that he tells Arjuna, now I'm going to tell you about the demonic qualities. Don't worry, you've been born with all the good qualities. And he begins with Dambo or Darpo or Bimanascha. Damba is, Prabhupada defines it as pride, but it's pride in the context of hypocrisy, deception, bluffing. In the third canto, I think it is, when Brahma is creating the universe, he has to create all of these negative things also, and one of them is Damba, personified as bluffing. In other words, you're cheating and presenting one thing and doing another. So that's the first quality of the demons, is that they like to present themselves as saintly, as religious, attending church. I always think of the mafia in New York. Most of them are Italians, so they're all Catholics. So they would all go to church, and then come out and order a hit on somebody, I mean, it's complete hypocrisy. So, but that's the idea. They want to look religious because it has. You remember when Kamsa was threatening, did I say Om Jnana? Okay. Sorry, my memories go short-term memory. When Kamsa was threatening to kill Devaki, you remember that at the beginning when he heard this omen? He's probably called a brother, and she's even called a sister, the swasra in Sanskrit. But it's a cousin relationship, cousin brother, cousin sister, because Ugrasen and Devaka were brothers. Devaka is the father of Devaki, and Ugrasen is the father of Kamsa. So they're cousins, right? But in Vedic culture, cousins act just like brothers and sisters. They have one big family. So anyway, he's about to, he's driving the chariot of his sister in their wedding day, very auspicious, everyone's very blissful. Suddenly there's this omen, disembodied voice, that says, Kamsa, you fool, the 8th child from this sister of yours is going to kill you eventually. He said child, didn't say son. But he assumed it was going to be a man. How could a woman kill him? So he assumed the son. But anyway, so he immediately said, oh, there's a danger here. Let me just chop her head off. So he raised his sword. And Vasudeva had to think quick on his feet that somehow saved the situation. So he talked about different philosophical points and everything. But finally, the only thing that really worked was when he explained to Kamsa, it'll look very bad for you, to kill this. Devaki's not really threatening you. It's her son. There may or may not be any sons in the future. But for you to kill your sister on this day is be very bad for your reputation. In other words, when he had some personal calculation, then he stopped. He didn't say, okay, he let the thing go on. And eventually Krishna was born and killed him. So this is the calculation. So the demons, they start with hypocrisy, and they're very much controlled by the lower modes of nature. And at the end of the chapter, the last 4 verses, he describes how these demons who are Ishavashamina, I'm the controller, I'm the owner, I'm perfect, powerful, and happy, I've killed this enemy, I'm going to kill that one, I made so much money today, I'll make tomorrow. Sounds like Wall Street, doesn't it? And this is the demonic mentality. So then he says, I cast these demons down further and further, eventually they go to hellish existence, he even says they go to hell. So then he says, Trivadham narakasya dam dwaram nashanam. There are 3 gates that lead to this hell. 3 gates. So, what are they? Can anyone know? Yes, lust, anger, and greed. It's good to begin with lust, because kama is the first always. Everything emanates from material desire. So yes, kama, krodha, tata, lobhas, tasmadeta, trayam tajay. Therefore, O Arjun, you should avoid these. Tasmadeta, trayam tajay. So lust, anger, and greed, and so what happens? So then the next verse he says, those who can avoid these 3 gates, they perform activities leading to their elevation. Ultimately, they go back to Godhead. In other words, this is the choice. It's either or choice. Either you're going to get infected with material desire, which comes with the territory of being in the material world, and become greedy, and become angry when people stand in the way of your expanded sense gratification. It all starts there. And you open your door to hell. Or you'll avoid these and act for your, he says, Etava mukta kontaya tamo dwaraistibi. One who is free from these, who has avoided these gates, these doors to hell, acharat yatmanak shreyasi, acts, acharati means to act, does activities, for the Shreya, the ultimate benefit of the soul, Atmanak Shreyas. And then Toto Yati Param Gatim. And then eventually goes back to Godhead. Param Gatim means the supreme goal. So here's the stark choice. It's either going to be bound by lust, anger, and greed, and eventually lose the human form. There's no eternal damnation. You eventually get another chance, but it just prolong, millions of years of suffering. Or you can act in such a way, according to bhakti, for the benefit of the soul, which means curbing lust and directing these energies toward service to Krishna. So I brought that up because this is all about avoiding greed. Greed is a natural concomitant, naturally follows indulgence of the senses and centering your life around sense pleasure and gross and subtle. Eventually develops into greed. And really you can see like the main institutions, like the stock market, the whole financial industry, it's based on two emotions, greed and fear. The stock market is moving, it's a measurement. If there's some fear that some company's going to go out of business or there'll be a war or some kind of thing is going to immediately sell, because you fear losing money, And then as soon as that passes and it looks like things are going right, okay, buy, out of greed. Maybe I'll make so much money. It'll go up. And I'll make it. So greed and fear. So that's. These have to, fear also has to be given up. That's the result of lust, anger, and greed. Eventually, everything comes back because it's karma and people are after you for cheating them, whatever. So this verse that we just read, this mantra, it's called the mantras in the Isopanisad, is meant to explain to you that you can't be greedy, that you don't own anything. Not only can you, the more that you try to gather for yourself, the more you're violating the basic principle that everything animate or inanimate is within the universe controlled and owned by the Lord. Why? As Prabhupada explains, because it's all a manifestation of God's energy. Everything belongs to God, right? I mean, what do we see, including ourselves, that isn't a manifestation of Krishna's energy? Prabhupada, he cites the 7th chapter here. Basic principles, Bhuma, Apo, Onanovayo, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. These are the building blocks of everything, gross and subtle. The subtle reality is actually much more important for us, meaning that's where you really live. Your sense of self, your mind, your intelligence, whatever sensations you experience are coming through these gross senses, but those are just machines. They register on the subtle body, and the soul perceives them as pleasurable, painful, sights, sounds, smells, taste, everything. It's all going on inside the subtle body, the mind. But that's also inanimate. The only animate thing there is the soul. And that's giving the sense of this body being alive, when it actually is just like a robot. It's dead from the beginning. Material energy has no consciousness. That's the whole point. So it's apara. Para means transcendental energy. Apara means just the opposite. Means mundane, material. But that's Krishna's energy. These are my energies, he says, my separated energies. And then there is the para prakriti. Apara, apare mitastran pranyam prakritim vidhi me param. These 8 are my apara prakriti, my lower energy. But there's also the para prakriti, jiva bhuta mahabaho, which consists of the living entities. That's us. So the higher energy, the lower energy, it's still energy. It's all owned and controlled by Krishna. So so material life is a complete lie. In other words, from the beginning, as soon as you try to separate out part of this material energy, enjoy it, you're working against Krishna's interest, because it's all his. The only proper way to live in this world is to find out what does Krishna want to do, and let me try to do that. In other words, service. And you become actually happy and peaceful then. So this verse is saying, okay, you're entitled to your quota. As living beings, we're entitled to our, just like animals. They get what they need. They can't really accumulate and have big bank accounts and everything. So they don't perform any sinful activity. They don't have the intelligence for it anyway. They're just working out their karma. But when you get to the human form of life, you can understand these things. And so you're responsible for following the laws. And this is the first law. We should therefore accept only things necessary which is set aside as our quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. And Prabhupada, now in this first paragraph, he's reiterating what he mentioned in the introduction, actually, about the 4 defects, and I like to think of them in order. We have imperfect senses. Who can deny it? And therefore you make mistakes about reality because you're interpreting your senses, but the information is imperfect. So you have to some conclusion. So imperfect senses, so you make mistakes. The first mistake is, I am this body. It seems like a no-brainer. It is a no-brainer because it's wrong, but not because it's so obvious. So you make mistakes, and those mistakes become part of what your what you think is true. In other words, it's not true, but everyone thinks it's true. So that's a mistake, and therefore you become illusion. It kind of coagulates into a grand illusion based on the idea that I'm this body. If I am this body, then where the body is born, that's important to me. I have to know. That's called Boma Ijadi, worshiping the place of where I born. And then I look around, and there's a whole bunch of people who look like me. Oh, there's my compatriots. This is my clan. So you identify with the place, you identify with the clan and the family, all based on the mistake that I'm this body. You're just like this is a temporary way station that the soul is in. Next body, you could be another species, another planet, another country, another race. So what's the point? It's just a grand illusion. But that illusion becomes very much prominent, and it's taught and passed on from generation to generation of illusion souls, and that's called cheating. So imperfect senses lead to mistakes. Mistakes coagulate into illusion, and illusion, when you teach it, when you spread it, when you impart it, that's cheating. Those 4 defects mean that we can't really find out what's going on unless we get a source of knowledge that's aparushaya. Now let's just break down this word. Purusha means human being in this context. Purusha. Apurusha means superhuman. The means it's not human sourced. So where is that? Where do we find that? Well, the first source is Krishna. And so in other words, the source of knowledge has to come from above, and that's what the Vedas are. The Vedas were imparted into the heart of Brahma at the beginning of the universe. He also was an illusion. He didn't know where he came from. He didn't know how he got on that lotus. Why is there anything? How did this? So he tried. It's interesting. He tried the ascending method of induction. What did he do? Well, what did he have to work with? The lotus. So he went down the stem, tried to find out where I come from. But even though the end of that stem was the navel of Garbhodakshay Vishnu, he couldn't find it because he didn't have the qualification. Garbhodakshay Vishnu was Krishna. Even Krishna standing in front of you, you won't recognize him as God or anything, right? Unless you're qualified. That's why even when he was on the planet, most people didn't understand that he's actually the Supreme Personality of God. So Brahma, wisely, he went back up the lotus and just sat there and waited for something to happen. And then he got instruction from above. You remember what it was? Yes, tapa. I think it says 3 times. You heard the tapa, tapa, tapa. So that means austerity, tapa. It really has its root in burning, heat. In other words, no pain, no gain. You have that. So by adopting proper austerities, transcendental divine austerities, tapo divyam, one can purify oneself, so one becomes a proper vessel for the knowledge to be imparted. That's really what he was doing. So he meditated, eventually had a revelation. The Vedas were imparted into him, and then he saw Goloka Vrindavan, even understood what his own Sarup was, and he spoke the Brahma Samhita and like that. Took a long time, relatively speaking. So, that source of knowledge is what's coming down to us. Is what's coming down through what is called the disciplic succession. From Brahma it comes to Narada, from Narada to Vyasa. From Vyasa Devi wrote all these books, and also he taught Madhvacharya. And from Madhva comes down, all the way to Madhavendra Puri, Ishwara Puri, Lord Chaitanya, 6 Goswamis, all the way down to Srila Prabhupada, who's giving it as it is. The whole idea is don't change it, don't distort it, don't add your own ideas. Just give it as it is. You can present it in such a way that's suitable for the particular audience. And the most important way that Prabhupada did that was in English, which is like the gateway language for all the others. Otherwise, it would, it was there in abundance in Bengali, in Sanskrit, and in other Indian languages, but it wasn't accessible. So the Vedas are not produced by such imperfect creature, and Brahma disseminated this knowledge. Now the Lord is Purnam, all perfect. There's no possibility of his being subjected to the laws of nature. So he's not under the laws of nature. He is the perfect source of knowledge. And it comes to this. So this is part of the Yajurveda. Then Prabhupada explains the different energies that I mentioned, the para and apara prakriti, which we have to know. Okay, I think that's as far as I read. Any discussion on these points? Isopanisad is really important book. And Prabhupada, in the end of this purport, will say the root cause of all the dissension in the world is the false claim of proprietorship. These artificial countries and like borders and everything. Go ahead, Prabhu.
Yeah, I was just curious. It talks about everyone has their quota that they're that they are entitled to, I guess.
Right.
But the question is, without someone to actually issue, so to speak, or inform you of it, how does one know what his quota really is? I mean, I think that's a lot of the reason why so many people are going outside of that is because they're not sure, or it's just a simple. Lust has a lot to play with it. Whenever you happen to find something that is lucrative, so to speak, that is making you money, you're thinking, oh wow, yeah, this must be it for me, so, and make more, and then of course you're way out of your bounds. Or the other way around, whereas, somebody is not so confident about their position in a certain job, or whatever the case may be, and because of this, they kind of lose their, how do you say it, their desire or motivation.
Yeah.
And again, they fall down, materially speaking, and again, it's just, I don't know if it's just being ill-informed, not knowing, or what is it, how does one really know what his quota is?
As in everything, you need instruction and examples. Now, I mean, what are the salient, most clear problems in the world today, especially in places like the United States, is the growing inequality, economic inequality. In other words, even on a mundane level, it's quite clear that okay, for like five individuals to have more money than half of the world. The multi-billionaires, this Walmart, the guy who invented Walmart, he made billions, and he has a bunch of kids, and they all are all billionaires just for being born. Of course, there's some karma involved there, but it's so obviously way over the top. Now, it's true that the American lifestyle is unsustainable for the world at large. You can't have 1.5 billion Chinese and 1.12 billion or whatever it is in India living anything like the American lifestyle and the planet to survive. So when you show or you have examples of Vaishnavas who are leading a simple life, it could be a family life or a brahmachari life is practically, what do you need? Well, we all need warm clothes, obviously. This is something I haven't seen before. You have this charter. Somebody gave you this nice charter. Anyway, you need it. We need it. If it gets under 50, it's your quota. No one's going to argue with you. No, it's too much. No. And Bhadra Narayan gave me this. It's come in really handy. It's a thick, it's got a little kind of false wool on the inside. So the basic necessities needed to live are kind of obvious. what you need beyond that, that has to be shown by example and precept of those who you accept as authority. The whole point here, beginning, and even the whole introduction, is you have to accept an authority that's superhuman. And those who are following that authority also become your authority. That's the whole idea of disciplic succession. So Srila Prabhupada showed, how one can he lived with, even when he had access to millions of dollars, his lifestyle was extremely simple, what he needed. Now, if you're married with children, of course you need more than that, but it's kind of not that difficult to see when you're expanding way out of bounds and you're getting more than you need. So and then there's always the opportunity to consult with those who are senior, those who are respected as authorities in Vaishnava circles. Because without that, it's understood here, in the context, that as soon as you leave the instruction of Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam and so forth, then you're going to be influenced by who knows what. This book, that book, this teacher, this example. I mean, how many kids grow up, they used to anyway, in the 90s, hoping to be like a Steve Jobs. I'm going to start my, little startup. I mean, the whole internet, what was it, the internet bubble, the .com bubble. It was all, I'm going to start this company, that company, pets.com, there's a bunch of them that's crashed. But they're all built on these dreams, dancing in your head. Well, look, he did it. He made $1 billion. He came up with an idea, built a Mac in his garage, and now he's a multi-billionaire, That kind of aspiration is and desire is the essence of capitalism, which can't, the whole planet can't support it. Because capitalism depends on growth, Like cancer depends on growth. It's the same idea. But it means it's based on having more. So I can invest more and make more, and I'll make millions and billions of dollars. That idea, which is propagated and throughout the society, is ruining the earth. So that's where that leads. So the idea of simple living, high thinking, Prabhupada's great phrase. Simple living, the high thinking has to be there, otherwise you'll not be satisfied with the simple living. So the simple necessities of life, you're entitled to that. No one's going to argue with it. But as soon as you start exaggerating it and you start propagating that idea, then you have what we have today. So that's what this Ishavasana is all about.
So you're defining quota based upon means and necessity.
That's the basic thing, yeah. I mean, necessities also may include, I need to have a nice altar with some deities for my, worship. No one's going to argue with that, But exaggerated, just sense gratification, and at one point the money itself becomes an object of sense gratification. That's where you get the miser idea. I don't spend, like, was it the Avanti Brahmin? He had all this money, but he wouldn't even spend on himself or on his family. And just, just let me look at the classic. Who was that famous miser? His daughter, Midas, right? Whatever he touched turned to gold, And when he touched his daughter, she turned to gold. In other words, it ruined the very human feelings, even for a family. That's the idea behind that parable. So, but greed is good. On the other hand, after all, what's the essence of the need? How are you going to attain pure love for Krishna? Krishna bhakti rasabhavitamati, which Prabhupada, he summarized that Sanskrit phrase in, what he called it? Krishna consciousness. It means the mind absorbed in bhakti rasa. This is way beyond any material thing, Krishna bhakti rasabhavitamati kriyatam yadikutopi labhyate tattva laulyam api mulyam ekalam janma koti sukataya labhyate. So this Krishna bhakti, the mind absorbed in Krishna bhakti, Krishna consciousness, you should buy it if you can find it somewhere in the market. It's the most valuable thing, the mind saturated with Krishna prema. You see? But what's the price? You got to have the price. And you go to the market, you have to have the price. Tattva lalyam, abhimulyam. Mulyam is price. The price is your intense greed for it. Janma koti sukatayana labhyate. At millions of births of material pious activity, you can't get the prema, and you can't even get the greed. That's not how you get it. So, in this sense, greed is good. And then there's this famous verse in the Pajavali. I hope it becomes famous one day. And that's the prayer of the miser, to become a miser. Vichayani, vichayani, vichinchani, punak punaha, kripanasya, dhananiva, tvanamaniva bantanak. Compelled to constantly collect and count his precious hoard, the miser contemplates his wealth with avaricious aims. Please bless me to become a miser who's compelled, O Lord, to constantly collect and count and contemplate your names. So greed for Krishna is the most valuable thing. And greed for material wealth and gold and all of this stuff is the gateway to hell. Okay. Let me read one more paragraph. Because the Supreme Being, the absolute personality of Godhead, is the complete person. Now back to the complete. Om Purnamadak Purnamidam, that's the invocation. He has complete and perfect intelligence to adjust everything by means of his different potencies. The Supreme Being is often compared to a fire. Okay, I think we read that. No, maybe we didn't. Compared to a fire, and everything organic and inorganic is compared to the heat and light of the fire. Just as fire distributes its energy in the form of heat and light, the Lord displays his energy in different ways. He thus remains the ultimate controller, sustainer, and dictator of everything. Yeah, we read that. This Ekadesha Stitis Yagne Josna Vistadani Yatar. Prabhu would quote this verse, it's quoted in the CC. Imagine a fire in one corner of the room. Usually we have these fire sacrifices in the middle of the room. Okay, so the middle of the room, Dionysus making the fire sacrifice, some holiday, and you're in the corner over there. So the fire's in one place, but it's emanating its light, and maybe if you try hard, you can even feel a little heat. So heat and light are the energy of the fire. The fire's in one place. Similarly, Ekadesha Stitis Yagner Jyotsna Vistaraniyata Padasya Brahmana Shaktis Tatedam Akilam Jagat. Similarly, the Supreme Brahman is situated in Goloka Vrindavan, but his energies are emanated everywhere throughout the material and spiritual universe's manifestation. And that's what this world is. It's all Krishna's energy, including us. So it's all like Krishna shine. That's the idea. So therefore, because it's all his energy, he's the proprietor. One should therefore be intelligent enough to know that except for the Lord, no one is a proprietor of anything. One should accept only those things that are set aside by the Lord as his quota. The cow, for instance, gives milk, but she doesn't drink that milk. She eats grass and straw, and her milk is designated as food for human beings, and of course for her own calves, but there's more than enough. Such is the arrangement of the Lord. Thus we should be satisfied with those things he has kindly set aside for us, and we should always consider to whom those things we possess actually belong. Take, for example, our dwelling, which is made of earth, wood, stone, iron, cement, and so many other material things. If we think in terms of Sri Isopanisad, we must know that we cannot produce any of these building materials ourselves. We can simply bring them together and transform them into different shapes by our labor. A laborer cannot claim to be a proprietor of a thing just because he has worked hard to manufacture it. So the other thing, of course, and part of the ingredients that go into making a building is the intelligence of the builder, right? Before there's a building, there's a blueprint. Who makes the blueprint? Well, the engineer or architect. So that intelligence is an essential part of the ingredients to any building. But that intelligence is also coming from Krishna. That's one of the 8 buddhi is one of the 8 material elements he mentioned in the 7th chapter. So it's all belonging to Krishna. Now, I had this realization after last night's class, which I gave, which I didn't mention at the time. Because in the 13th chapter, Nature of the Enjoyer and Consciousness, Arjuna asks these questions. What is Prakriti and what is Purusha? What is Chaitra and Chaitragya? What is knowledge, Jnanam, and the object of knowledge, Jnanagamya, or what I think it's called. So, Krishna begins his answer as he says, Idam sharidam kontaya chaitram ipyavidiyate etadhyomati tadpahu chaitragya iti tadvata. That this body is the field of activities. And the one who knows the body, called the Kshetragya, that's the living entity. So that's simple. Now, but there's another Kshetragya, the Supreme Personality of God, who's also dwelling in every body as a super soul. He mentions that in the next verse. So in this explanation of that, it's the body and the knower of the body, the field and the knower of the field. But then he also talks about the owner, right? We're the owner of the body. So I thought about that, and there was some editorial adjustment there, where owner and knower. But I thought, well, when you're first figuring out, am I the body or not? Well, I can say my hand, my foot, my mind even. But you don't say I, foot, I, mind. In other words, the person who owns something is different from the thing itself. My car, my house. You're you, and you have these things. So you're the soul, and you own, or you have these different elements of your body. So that's like gyan. That's a understanding. Aham brahmasmi. I'm spirit, and I own all these things. Now bhakti moves beyond that. It says you don't own them even. You know about them for sure. But the supreme owner is Krishna. Right? I'm not the owner of my body. Krishna owns everything, including my body, which is also created of earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, ego. So how do I own this? It's just another creation of the material energy. I'm claiming it's mine, and that's my whole problem. So bhakti moves beyond that understanding. It begins with I'm different from the body. This is my field of activity. But it's not really mine. Remember I mentioned about the inner meaning of the word namaha, if you were here last night. Not mine. Every time we bow down, namaste, dandavats. These senses, this body is not mine. Please, you engage me in your service. Engage my senses, Rishikesha, the Lord of all the senses, including ours. So bhakti takes you from the first understanding, I'm spirit, and this is my body that I have in my mind, to understanding, I'm spirit, I'm a spiritual person, and these things that I have at my disposal all belong to Krishna. And so my actual perfection is being situated in that mentality and engaging these senses and this mind and this intelligence in the service of the actual proprietor. And the result is that it leads to ultimate bliss and happiness for the soul, because it's the natural position of the soul. What develops is this ecstasy of love, because Krishna is reciprocating with you. He's not just a dull stone getting all his service. Every time we serve him, there's also a reciprocation. The first of which is eradicating our karma. And all of this, the imprisonment, the chain victimization of karma. It's a famous phrase probably in Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. It's exactly what it is. One thing after another. You do some sinful activity to counteract the results of previous sinful activity, and you get tangled up in karma for millions of births. So we got a little far afield. Any final comments or questions? We'll continue this purport next Monday. Okay. So we begin there. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.